Hey, it's Tom from Texas and it's time for another Floppy Deep Dive. In this video, it's sponsored by PCBWay. And one of the things that I do for my Commodore 64 is I have these diagnostic testing that I have. And this diagnostic testing, if you could look on there, came from this board's PCBWay. So I also have the dead test cartridge and the diagnostic cartridge. Again, the board came from PCBWay. So anytime you're needing some supplies or you needing some stuff to test, like cordless diagnostic testing or a dead test or a diagnostic that you want to put together, you can go to PCBWay.com and go ahead and get and share one of these and put one of these together yourself so you can make sure your computers are working top-notch shape. And on this video, we're going to be doing another episode of
What's on that floppy?
And this floppy has some really good games on it, and we're going to be checking these out. There's 7 to 8 games altogether, but one of the games is my all-time favorite that I think most of you probably have never even played, but when it comes to me, played it so much with my brother that we even wrote our own theme song while we played it and sang along while we were playing it. So it had a big, huge influence. Loved playing this game, and we're just gonna talk and check that game out, and including all the others that are on here. Also want to mention, we've got our contest. This is week 7 now, so this will be the 7th video. So you'll have 7 keywords. There'll be only one more to go to win one of Tom's retro posters, where I'll ship to anywhere in the world. You could still get in on this contest. All you have to do is go watch the last 6 videos I made before this video. In each one of those videos, I mention a keyword. All you have to do is write down that keyword, and then at the very end, after you collect all 8 keywords, you email that to me, to p1tom@yahoo.com, and I will put them all in a hat, and I'll draw it a name, and I will send whatever retro poster you want. If you want the Pirates, Bruce Lee, Maniac Mansion, you just let me know, and that's the one you'll get, and I'll ship it to anywhere in the world. So don't forget this contest, and check it out and listen for the keyword today. So let's go ahead and get back to what's on that floppy. Go ahead and pull up a chair, grab a joystick, and let's get started. So the first game we're going to check out is the one that I mentioned was one of my all-time favorite games on the Commodore 64, and that's Rocketball. Rocketball is a sports action Commodore 64 game that was released in 1985, and Rocketball is based on a futuristic sports movie, Rollerball, that was released in 1975 that was starring James Caan. And popular taglines from that movie is, "The rules are, there are no rules," and this was never meant to be a game. And Rocketball is set in the year 2010, where worldwide disputes are no longer settled through wars, but you settle them through a good circular Rocketball arena. And the game's similar to like roller derby, where 2 teams are on roller skates traveling counterclockwise, and the object is to score points by throwing this cannonball, metal ball, into this cone-shaped target that's in the wall. And the balls are fired out of a cannon like into play, and then you gotta go pick it up. And this game is just so cool because there's so many different things you could do, where you could crouch down and take out people, or you could jump over them when they fall down. You could throw elbows. You could throw the ball at them. You could do all these different maneuvers, all trying to, keep your team going, not let the ball get out of play, and throwing the ball in the other person's goal. And just had a blast with this. Like I said, you could use your fist and all different things when you're fighting, and it's just so much fun. The biggest difference that's in the film that's not in this game is there's no players riding on motorcycles in this game. There's 5 active players that are on the roller skates that are going around. There's 4 Rocketball teams. There's Houston, Tokyo, Moscow, and Madrid. And these teams, like I said, all going around. The duration of the game is about 10 minutes, but it is so fun as a 2-player game. I mentioned that my brother and we had a song that basically we came up with, and it was very generic. We basically took Rocky Top Tennessee and anytime it has Rocky Top, took that out of it and inserted Rocketball into it. I'm not sure why they didn't call it Rollerball like the movie and just, went with the same thing and switched it to Rocketball, but it doesn't matter because, like I said, this game is awesome. And I think the unfortunate thing is a lot of people have not ever heard or played this game. And that's just a shame because it is awesome. I know there's some people who have played it. Obviously, it's not everybody, but I still think, in my opinion, it's very underrated, and it's one of those underrated Commodore 64 games that should be on the top of everybody's list. So if you haven't downloaded this game, definitely go out there and get it. Like I said, if you could play against somebody, it makes it even better. You can play against the computer in this, and that's fine. It's still just as fun, but it's always better to play against someone. And it's just so fun throwing these balls and taking each buddy out and just having the all-out war trying to win this rocket ball game. And I would love to see a remake of this game. I'd love for them to come out with a new version of it that's in current times out on the whatever PS5 or on your PC or whatever. I think it would be really, really cool to recreate and make, because this is just a cool sports game. And it's just kind of funny that it was set in 2010, which is what now, 12 years ago. But in 1975, that was a long ways off, and who knows what the world would be like. And hey, it would be nice if there were no wars and everything was settled by good old Rocketball. But wanted to share this one with you. I was excited to see that this one was on the floppy and I was going to get to play it. I had played a full game all the way through. I won't show that all here. But again, if you can't tell the excitement of my voice, this one is a classic. And I just want to show the world, everybody needs to learn about this game if you don't know about it, because it is awesome. 2 huge thumbs up. Check it out. So let's go ahead now and move on to the next game. Now we're going to look at the video game Crystal Castles. And this was an arcade game that was released by Atari in 1983. And the port over to the Commodore 64 was done very, very well. The Crystal Castle has 9 levels with 4 castles each, and the 10th level is a single castle. And the whole idea is you've got to be Bentley Bear, who goes around and you're collecting these gems to these different castles while avoiding the enemies. Some who are also after the gems, so you always want to get the last ones. You get a bonus if you get the last gem. And this game was very, very popular and a very fun game to play. It didn't come out on the Commodore 64 until 1985, but it was released on a lot of different systems. The Apple II, the 2600, the Atari ST, the Amstrad, the Spectrum, the Atari 8-bit. So almost all the systems got it, but the Commodore 64, like I said, was very, very close to the arcade, and actually enjoyed playing it and played it much more than the arcade. I actually didn't get to play the arcade very much at all back in those days. You just didn't. But having this at home and was able to play it anytime I liked, always enjoyed this one. Always fun going around being Bentley Bear, trying to get, all the different gems while you're at it. And like I said, very popular game. A lot of people know this one. I know this one's probably much more popular than Rocketball that I started with. And if Rocketball wasn't on here, I would have started with this game just because I know it's probably the most popular one that most people know. But I enjoyed it. I love to play this one again. Always an easy one. Whenever I load it up, it's so addicting just to get started and playing. And it's just so easy riding up on the elevators and collecting all the different stuff that you could just pick up your joystick and play. And I love that aspect of it. So give it 2 thumbs up. If you've never played Crystal Castles, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but if you haven't, get it. If you don't have it right now, get it. Play it in emulation, play it on Vice, play it on your Commodore 64. But classic game, love it, go get it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Next, we're going to look at a game called KillerWatt for the Commodore 64, and this was released in 1983, and the whole perspective is a side view, and it's a shooter sci-fi game, and your mission's to fly your spacecraft through these tunnels in an underground cave, and you got to shoot these 12 bulbs to move on to the next level. And the game, like I said, is viewed from the side, and the screen scrolls left to right when you move your craft, and you got to search for these different bulbs, and you must avoid just various creatures like fish jumping up, whale-looking things jumping up, and shoot them. And if you touch one or hit the walls for too long, you lose one of your 3 lives. But once you shoot all 12 bulbs, then you move to the far left of the cavern and you hit a switch to move on to the next level. And there's 5 different levels to go through, with each cavern having the same layout but has more creatures to shoot or avoid. And before the game, you could select the strength of your shield 1 to 5 and which level it starts on. So if you can't ever get past the level, you can just switch to the different level. And I've played this game before. This was written by Crowther, who has written other games in the past that we've looked at. And so KillerWatt is one that's been out there. I just think it's okay. It was okay for the thing. I give it a B. Not the most exciting game for me. I don't like this one. I'm flying in these little caverns and so forth. There's so many games like that. They're just kind of boring. Not too original, but maybe in 1983 it was original. But anyway, I say it's okay. It's worth checking out if you've never played it. But that's up, it's just a nice little shoot game while you go around. So let's go ahead and move on to another game. Next, we're going to look at another classic arcade game, Jouste. But this Jouste ends in an E. If you saw on that title screen, it was Jouste with an E at the end, because this isn't the official port of Jouste from Atari. This game, for some reason, got missed or overlooked. Was created but never officially had a release on the Commodore 64. So this is what we had back in the day. We had this with the E, and if you don't even notice it, you just think that you're playing Jouste. It's very similar. It's a clone. It's a copy of the Jouste game that came out in 1980. 1982 was when it was released, and it was released on other different systems too, but again, like I said, not the Commodore 64. And I always loved this game. I always thought it was fun flying and landing on these people's heads and then collecting the egg, and if you don't collect the egg fast enough, it hatches, and then the bird comes back out and tries to get the guy again. Or you got the pterodactyl that's flying through that's going to take you out. Some levels, if you fly over the lava, the hand reaches up and grabs you, and then you get killed that way. It's just a fun game. It was very, very creative is how I would describe it. It's just a great platform. I loved it at the arcade, and I love this. Actually, this version I found it was fun. Like I said, didn't realize it wasn't the official version until years later, where someone pointed out to me that little E that was at the end, and that it wasn't the official Jouste. So enjoyed this one, thought it was fun. It's it's not a port, it's a clone. Not that it matters. Everybody else who saw it at the time, you think it's Jouste. Now, they did finally release a version of Jouste on the Commodore 64, I believe in 2020. They finally figured out where the lost game was and who wrote it and who released it. And so I haven't really dug too much into that. If someone knows more of that story, please share it in comments. I would love to hear more about that. I just know that this one isn't official, but it's just as fun. It's a good one. If you don't have it, give this one a big 2 thumbs up too. Excellent game. So, going to move on now to the next one. So now we're going to look at another classic, and they just keep coming on this floppy, and this is Pitstop 2. And Pitstop 2 was a 1984 sequel to the 1983 racing game Pitstop. Both of them were published by Epix, And this one came out on a lot more platforms than the original did, but was released on the Commodore 64, the Atari 8-bit, IBM, compatible with Apple II, TRS-80, and the Pitstop 2 big thing was it added a split screen so you could have a two-player game mode. So players could be completely different places on the racetrack, and each half of the screen shows the track according to that player's position. And that was very unique back at that time. And I love Pitstop 1 and I love Pitstop 2. It's a great racing game. It requires that you got to keep an eye on your tires and your fuel gauge to make sure that you can make it all the way through the race, and you're able to go into the pit stop, hence the name. And that's where you can go in there and change your tires and refuel. And when you're filling up, if you don't take out the gas right at the right time, it all empties and you got to start over. So there's a lot of different little things that was just fun that made it complicated enough to make it enjoyable, but still was pretty easy to play. And there was like 6 different racetracks that you could go through and play. And like I said, I found this game to be fantastic. I think it was a very fun driving game, one of the originals. It was just like I said, so smart and handled so well back in the time, and it just made racing fun. And when you could race against someone, it was even better, but you could still race against the computer too. The graphics were good for the time. It looked really well. Loved doing these different racing games, and a lot of people copied from this of how this one was made. But like I said, just a good experience where you could change tires and the fueling, and nothing but high praise for Pitstop 2. Give it 2 thumbs up. Another one, if you haven't played, you need to, but I'm pretty sure 99% of the people have played this game on one system or another. If not, get it, check it out, play it, emulate it, however you need to do it, but it's a fun one. So next we're going to look at a game called Zone Ranger for the Commodore 64, and this game was released in 1984 and was released by Activision. And this was an arcade action game that was similar to Asteroids. Basically, you're this pilot of a spaceship in a deadly region of space, and these large killer rocks and rogue satellites and boomerangs and all this fills this region of space, and you use your ship to go around and destroy as many of these items as you can to earn points. And each level contains some warp holes that you enter, and you'll be transported to a new location, which could become useful if you get in trouble. And you occasionally come across some like sonic sparkles, and you touch one of those and you temporarily get invincible. And you also come across a super portal, which will transport you to the inner sanctum where bonus dots can be found. And this was a fun game. I liked it. I don't remember it. When I loaded it up, I thought it was going to be something else I was thinking of. And when I saw the screen, I was like, what's this? I don't remember this. And I really don't. I don't remember this game. I'm playing it much, but it's fun. I like it. It is very Asteroids-like, and it is definitely worth checking out. Fun little space shooter flying around with these different portals and stuff. So if you guys never played this one, this is one you definitely want to look into also. And I've been saying that all through this floppy. This has just been an excellent floppy. It's had a lot of good games on there. So Zone Ranger, Commodore 64, 2 thumbs up, another good one. So next we're going to be looking at International Soccer. And this game was on my floppy. It was called Soccer 2. And I'm not sure why this was 2 or what was different about this one. I do notice that I got 2 different versions. One that says on the billboards on the side for the advertising says Commodore. And then I have this one that shows Oleander. And I'm not sure if that's what the difference is. Maybe someone can enlighten me who knows more about the history of this game and why this one would say 2, or if someone would consider this one to be different. But that's really the only thing that I can see that easily jumps out to me, because they're both play-wise, everything seems to be the same. You can actually change it to black and white, the colors on the team, all with the F keys to get it all set up. And the game, it's just like every game consists of 6 field players and 1 goalkeeper. So basically, I enjoyed this one. This was a great soccer game for back in the time when it was released, because a lot of soccer games weren't that great if you had it like an Atari. But this one that came out in 1983 was really, really good. And you could either play against human or play against the Commodore 64, and you could shoot high and low, and you could actually head the ball in, and you make throw-ins, you could storm the goal, and when the game over, the captain of the team gets a cup handed to him by a beautiful woman, and you hold the cup up, and it's just really, really cool. And it's very similar to like the basketball that came out for the Commodore 64, the ending where you kind of get that celebration on there. And like I said, it was really good. There's no fouls, and there's also no penalty kicks in this game. And the game lasts at least, I believe there's a half time, so there's at least 2 half times during this one. I played a full game while I was playing it, but enjoyed it all the way. You know, all the different stuff, the passing, the shooting. You can make it a harder level if you need to make it a harder level. But this game was great. When I remember getting this and playing it, like I said, I also played this one against my brothers. This was a good one. Just did a really good job. Just like the basketball, like I said, they really were very creative and really made this a fun soccer game or football for my friends across the pond. So 2 thumbs up on there, another quality game. On this one, the video is not as clear as I remember on the other one. Just want to mention that before I leave. Had like some like streaking in it. I don't know if it's just the version of this game. It was kind of weird. It was not playing really well on my bread box, so I moved it to the Commodore 128 just to see how it looked on there. And it played just fine, and there wasn't that kind of disturbance that it had on the bread box, but still just interesting little things. But if anyone could give me more of a history on this game and why they have the different, maybe it was different regions where they put the Commodore versus the Oleander, I'm not sure, maybe that. But love to hear it. Again, 2 thumbs up. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The keyword this week is doctor. The keyword is doctor. So next we're going to be looking at Mind Control, that was released in 1984 on the Commodore 64. And it's an arcade game, and the Mind Control it's a single screen game that splits into 2 parts, where your mission is to destroy Zyko, an indestructible alien who is ruling Earth and enslaving all humans. And the scientists are realizing that Zyko can't be destroyed, have worked out a way that he has a weak spot that would be his massive sensory neuron in his brain. So they selected you to go into this, shrink you down, enter his bloodstream, move around to his brain, and destroy the neuron with a laser. And the first part of the game is a platform game where you got to get from the bottom right and climb the stairs and make it up to the Zyko's brain. So you got to jump over these patients, and you got to time everything right. And it was pretty tough. This one I'm not the best at, that's for sure. But the people, they're trying to stop you, and you can't touch them, and you lose lives, and you only have 3 lives. But that's what you got to do first, and then you make it to the miniaturizing room where you're shrunk before you enter the brain. And then the second part of the game, they have you viewing the brain from the side, where you have to make your way from the bottom of the screen to the center of the brain following a path. And as you move around the brain, there's white blood things following you, and antibodies following you, and you got to avoid them, or you'll increase in size and your life's lost. So the walls make up the path, also make you grow if you touch them, so you have to avoid touching the walls. And then once you reach the center and destroy the neurons, then you keep attempting to move around the brain or over various levels where the enemies just keep getting faster. So this game was tough. I never made it to the brain. I'm sure some people have. I didn't. I played a lot of games today, and this one was towards the end. So You know, I try to get as far as I can to show you the levels, and I was hoping to get to the brain to show that one to you, but I never could get there. These dang patients just kept taking me out. So that's Mind Control by Mastertronic. I liked it. I think if I played it more, it's just a fun little miniature game, but they did a good job on it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So the last game we're going to look at, and the least game we're going to look at, is Chuck Norris Superkicks. And this game is terrible. When you've got a list of the worst games for the Commodore 64, this one's right up there with Bionic Granny and some of the other ones that I told you are terrible. And maybe one day I'll just make a list and cut all those videos and show all the ones that are the bad ones. I notice people like to make a list of the worst games on the Commodore 64. And I could easily do that. And this is one of them. But in Chuck Norris Superkicks, what you got to do is you got to reach the monastery within 6 minutes. So that you're the player, you control Chuck Norris on this vertical scrolling world, and as you walk along this path, if you step on the grass, you lose time, and time just starts going away. And warriors ambush you as you watch, which cause you to enter battle. And while you enter battle, you face enemies one at a time who run back and forth and throw different items at you. And if they hit you, it knocks you down and makes you vulnerable to attacks. And basically, you have the moves where you can punch, kick, or block. And the block protects them from like the throwing stars, while the punches and kicks is what you got to use to be able to kick the enemies. And you got to beat them 3 times, or there's supposed to be 3 different enemies that you're doing it. And so after you defeat them, you got to keep going to the next one. And then while you're walking along the path, sometimes things will block your path. A tree will just rise up, so you got to go back and go another way. And it just is just a ridiculous game. I couldn't get it to work on my bread box. That is so weird. But on my Commodore 128, it loaded up just fine. Again, not my favorite game. I would give this one thumbs down. If you disagree, let me know. Love to hear if you loved it. I just thought you couldn't really fight. The timing on it was just ridiculous. You know, you think it's a good concept when they were making it up, but it just was bad. And apparently this was on multiple different systems. I only seen it on the Commodore, but it's also on the Commodore VIC-20, the ColecoVision, and the Atari 2600. So that one, the only one I give thumbs down today. I just didn't enjoy this one at all. I never have liked it, never did play it. It's interesting to know that it did lose the name license expired for Chuck Norris, so in the future they sold it as Kung Fu Superkicks, and they just took out Chuck Norris altogether. So at least Chuck got to get his name off of there, because this game was just bad. So the last thing that was on this floppy that was kind of interesting to me and that I haven't seen in a long time is this program called Weather Prophet. And the reason it's interesting to me and probably nobody else, so I'll go quick on this, but I used this program. I typed it in from Compute magazine or some magazine that they had, and this was my science project in like the 7th grade. So every year you had the big science boards and create a science project and get it, and I actually got honorable mention for this. So type this all in from Compute, in there the data in there said that it could predict the weather. 1984 or whenever I was in the 7th grade. This was, you know, an interesting program, and interesting enough that they got the attention of my teachers to give me, you know, not the first prize, but at least I got honorable mention. So kind of cool that I saw it. Interesting that I still have it. Where else can, you know, a man who's 50 years old see a project that he made back in 7th grade and it's saved on a floppy? How cool is that? So anyway, we'll move on from there, but just wanted to share that with you guys.
So that's it, guys. That's everything that's on it. I hope you enjoyed checking out Rocketball. Like I said, one of my all-time favorite games on the Commodore. If you've never played it, you've got to go download it and check this game out. It is awesome. What other game do you get to skate around and throw cannonballs at each other and knock people down and slam around on roller skates? It's just an awesome game. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. And until next time, thank you for joining me on another Floppy Deep Dive.